So typically when I find a computer, I get them on the Facebook Marketplace or eBay. I like eBay because you have the buyer protection, which works really good if somebody sends your computer and it doesn't work or they get you a dud. Facebook Marketplace, I like it too because you can pay cash, better negotiation, but you take more of the risk of you buy the computer, it doesn't work, and then the seller could ghost you. But those are the risks you take whether you're buying Facebook or eBay. But there's also another risk and another opportunity to get a good deal for a cheap price, and yard sales. And that's where this computer came from. This is a yard sale find. So I was recently at a yard sale, and I wish I would have recorded this, but in my area, people are weird and finicky. I really don't want unnecessary police interaction, and even more so, I just don't want people threatening me. People get really agitated about being recorded, which I get it, I respect it, so guess what? I try not to record that stuff. But this one I picked up at a yard sale around me, and it's an HP Z640, and I paid $10 for it, which I think is a steal of a deal. So let's dive into it. Let's take a look at the specs, and let's see if I got a good deal. Now, the HP Z640s were released back in 2015 and had a release price of $1,300. Came with a Xeon, either the E5 2400 to 2600, different variants, the V4, some V3s, and I would say are basically equivalent to an i7 6th gen or 7th gen. Now, of course, these are not gaming PCs by no means. They were not designed for that, but typically years later, as cheap as we can get them, it is so easy to pop in a solid state drive, a little memory, maybe max out the CPU, pop in a graphics card, and they hold up really well. And for as cheap as sometimes you can get them, make for a decent gaming rig. Now, I really enjoy these older computers because they don't make this new stuff like they used to. I mean, back in the day, it was so much easier to upgrade it. There was a lot of little cool features that they definitely don't have anymore, and a lot of it is just not the need for it or just different hardware, but it's still really cool to take a look back at this stuff. And yes, they're not pretty, and you know, they can be an eyesore. They don't have the RGB or the glare thing, but like I said, as cheap as you can find them and as people tend to throw them out, good bang for the buck. If I see them, I snag them up and make good use of it. So let's dive further. Now, I don't know too much about this one or the specs on it. In fact, I literally picked this up a couple of hours ago. So now I want to dive into it and make sure it works. Now, the seller at the yard sale said this has been in their garage for years, which is pretty interesting because this thing is clean. Typically when they sit around the garage, they're a lot dusty, but this thing is pretty clean. Maybe they cleaned it. Maybe somebody tinkered with it. I don't know. Now, one cool feature, which I think is really awesome, and yes, I mean, mechanical drives are not typically used, but hot swappable drive action. This one has a M on it. It's a 500 gig. It's the SATA variant, 32 megs of cache. So that's pretty cool. And, you know, just, well, you know, pop it in there. But as you can see right over there, I mean, hot swappable. I mean, that is nice. That is nice. Back in the day, you used to actually pay for a specific drive that went in the 5 1/4, but this is right there. Yes, you have to remove the panel to do it, but it's still pretty cool. Now, this does have the DDR4 flavor, and if I'm being honest with you, I'm not sure if it's quad channel, dual channel. I don't know a lot about this. We're kind of doing this on the fly, but I'm curious to see how much memory we have or don't have. Now, these support up to 256 gigs of DDR4, and this one, and I'm looking through the camera and I can't really see. Can you guys see it? It's 8 gigs of DDR4, which that's actually a pretty good start. It's the 2133 speed, and yeah, so this is 8 gigs too. So off to a good start in the fact that we have 16 gigs of DDR4. Whether it's ECC or non-ECC, I'll post that on the screen, or if I remember to mention it in the video later, I'll let you know. So before I move on, forget, this is ECC memory, and the cool thing is that I do have some other ECC memory that I'm not using, so we can upgrade this to 32 gigs of DDR4, ECC memory, 2133, and that's exactly what we're going to do with this. So now moving forward, 2 fans. I mean, that's nice. You know, good for airflow. Let's see anything else. Now, this is what I like, and you don't see this a lot anymore. traditional pin action, so you could put in a better graphics card. Now this is the 3-pin variant. You can get a 3-pin to 4-pin and run like a 1070 is what I ran on one of them. I don't know, and I get asked these questions a lot. What's the best graphics cards I could put in here? I mean, the one that works and the one that's not going to bottleneck, that's the best advice I can give you. So now moving forward, this is kind of weird. It has an IDE CD-ROM drive, and as you can see, this does not have IDE support. So I would imagine that somebody removed this and just popped this in just to get rid of that eyesore. If it works, it works. Well, this doesn't work, but the concept works behind it. That's neat. Now, taking a look at it, the power connectors, of course, they're proprietary. You got the one over here, the one over here. I actually had an HP Z640 that I did a case swap on it, and just kind of doing some preliminary research. You could take a look at that video, and case swapping this, it's pretty much the same thing. The pins right over here for the power are on the bottom. You could get the adapter for $20. So if you wanted to take this, repurpose it into a better case, you can. Some people may argue that it's a waste of money, defeats the whole purpose of a cheap computer, but it's your computer, do what you want. If that's an option or something you want to tinker around with, go for it. Now this is something that's really cool, and I mean, of course you don't see it. I mean, removable power supply. Now, of course it's all in there, but I mean, if we had to, unplug everything and this power supply just pops right out. I'm not sure exactly what the wattage is, but these typically come with some high watts, typically I think 700. If I'm wrong on the screen, I will correct it, but still. And honestly, these old power supplies for these servers, very robust. I've never had one go back, and this is even using HP Z230 ones that I flipped. So pretty reliable, definitely worth getting adapters to add a better graphics card later. So let's flip this thing on its side and let's find out what CPU I got. Now for removing the CPU, we got flat heads and of course those annoying torques. So I think I have a flathead screwdriver. Nope, definitely use that for the car, so we won't use that one. Is this one overkill? Definitely overkill. See if I can find a smaller one. Less overkill. Yeah, I think that should work. It's pretty neat how this CPU cooler is offset up there. Don't know the scientific purpose around it, and I would assume it's so this fan over here, so it could just blow straight out, remove the hot air. My assumptions. But we know the deal with assumptions. Alright. See if we could pop this out safely without breaking it. Nice. And our thermal paste is the original. Yeah, definitely original. And it's got some lines, you know, lines for, well, use your imagination. But I digress anyways. I'm just going to use some alcohol wipes, which may or may not work for this. Because this thing is like really, yeah. I may eventually get the job done. See if I could get some Goo Gone. Just kind of rub it in. Probably should use some gloves, but safety third. Now, on a side note, I got keys. Probably like the first server or computer that I actually have the keys to, and it looks like they've never been used or removed. So, you know, if we want to lock it and make sure nobody steals the inside when they could just steal the whole computer, we can do that. So let's see if this comes up nice and easier. Oh yeah, Goo Gone to the rescue. And like I say, with any old computer that you have or find, fresh thermal paste makes a huge difference. You know, we want to get all the FPSs and sentiment points that we can get. And thermal throttling is definitely an enemy. Oh, it's looking like brand new. I'm gonna be able to take this to a, you know, a computer show and show this off. Nope. definitely don't want to show this off. And if I read this upside down correctly, we have an E5 2620 V3. Let me look up the specs on that. So looking up the specs on the whole interweb, 6 cores, 12 threads, max turbo frequency of 3.2 gigahertz, base frequency of 2.4 gigahertz. Ooh, little weak sauce on the single core action. Yeah. It should be good enough for what I'm trying to do with it. But ideally, we'd probably want to get a better CPU with a little more, frequency action going on it. But it'll work for now. 85 watts, launch date 2014, and really not much other information that's worth mentioning. So digging through the parts pile, I found this one, and this is a E5 1630 V4. Now, this one has less cores, 4 cores, 8 threads, 6 core, 12 threads, and I think this one has 20 megs of cache, and this one's only 10, but has a higher frequency. This would probably be the way I would sell a computer like this, or, flip, use, whatever, give. I'd rather have the higher frequencies. This one only runs like at 2.1 or 2.2 gigahertz, and it boost clocks 3.2. This one is 3.7, and it boost clocks to 4.0, something to that effect. A lot of numbers. So I am going to switch this one out. I think that would be the better way to go. If I was using this for a workstation application, absolutely this is the way to go. But I think we're going to get more versatility, whatever that word is. It's going to be better rounded using the CPU. So let's pop that in, pop in all that memory, and then we'll talk about our graphics card. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I haven't tested this yet. Now, typically if I buy it from eBay, fire it up first. If I get it from a seller on Facebook Marketplace in hopes that if it doesn't work, I can return it, fire it up. But I paid $10, I'll take the gamble. I'll waste the time, and if not, it makes for a interesting video. Can I fix it? I got scammed. Not really when you assume all the risks, but it is what it is. So now let's remember how this goes. We got the triangle. Legend of Zelda triangle goes up here. Got one right over there, so let's just, gently pop that in. Yeah, gently. Just get that out. Yep. And let's go this way. This way. Wipe it one more time. A new home for a 1630. And hopefully this thing doesn't require a BIOS update for it. In our old CPU, we'll put it for the next computer we might need it for. Don't throw away parts, folks. You never know. So now we're popping this in, just like so. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that this ECC memory has been sitting around the garage for a long time, I probably would just leave it with the 16 gigs and not mess with it, but after a while you really gotta reutilize your older hardware. Now I'm gonna pop some thermal paste, put the fan on, and we'll take a look at the graphics card. So now that we're mostly put back together, might want to pop you in. So I am gonna leave in this 500 gig hard drive because, well, it's extra storage, and it's kind of the whole thing about this. Make sure this is popped in, that's popped in, and we're good to go. So now the graphics card might get some concerns, controversy, hate about this, but the whole point of this is that I got a lot of stuff. It is kind of the spring cleaning action that we're doing, and I need to make room for more projects. There's so many more things that I got getting ready to come in that I'm waiting to pull the trigger on, to do videos on and flip and other stuff. So I got to get rid of this stuff, because if I don't, it'll sit there forever. And also got a bunch of other old stuff that we got to do. So the whole point of this is that I got to get rid of a lot of old stuff. I got this Radeon. It's an R9 270, and I got this on that computer that pretty much a guy bought it. It's supposed to be an RX 580. He got scammed, and I thought this didn't work. I did a separate video on this, and guess what? It does work. I don't know what happened with it. So we're going to be using a R9 270. Yes, a 1070 and a 1080 would be ideal, or even a RX 580. That would be a real nice one for it, but that's what I got. That's what we're going to use. For the storage, I have 120 gig SSD, which I think it should be fine. This is going to be a really low budget flip. I mean, probably for what I'm selling it for, you're practically giving it away, but I have nothing into it and I need to get rid of these parts. Now, in case you're wondering, if you wanted to pop in a 1070 or a 1080, these adapters, they worked fine. I've used them in a lot of full 40s, and I think this is actually the first 640 I've ever messed with. But these work great, and they're like, what, $5 on Amazon. I won't need it for this one because if I'm not mistaken, 3-pin action. So that'll work good. And 120 gig will run Windows. We'll put games and stuff on this, and that will be perfectly fine. So what's really neat is this black box. I think there's a fan in here. Maybe not. Yeah, there's a fan in here. It has these holes where it just holds these cables nice and neat and in place. I mean, that's cool. So you'd have 2 6-pins, and of course you could change them to 2 8-pins. I don't know what the wattage is on this power supply. I'll post it on the screen, and that'll kind of give you an idea of what graphics card you can use. Like I said, I've used the 1070. It worked fine. I think I used the 1080 on another one. Yeah, I did use the 1080 on a Z440, and that worked fine. But let's put in this graphics card. Something is better than nothing. Let's make sure this thing is out of my way. And of course, this thing just does not want to, it doesn't want to cooperate. Oh my gosh. It's like they don't want you to put a graphics card in there. There we go. Slide that in. There we go. That should work. Yeah. That's going nowhere. Now we'll take our 6-pin, and if I was looking at the specs correctly, the higher end specs, now these started at $1249. The higher end ones went upwards of $3,000 to $4,000, and they would come with I think it was an M5000. I actually have an M2000 around there, but this is fine. Now for storage, let's pop this in here, and yes, it's missing that cover. Just to test it for now. We'll go back in, and if I want to, I could change this cable, which I'll probably do, or you could just put a bead of hot glue. I've done that several times, and I've never had one bite me in the butt. And we're just gonna tactfully and professionally just tuck you in right in there. What is in there? It's fine. So let's add some power. And typically these things just randomly turn on and turn off multiple times to get used to the new CPU, memory, and all that stuff. So, wow, this one did not do that. Is that a good sign or a bad sign? Or maybe it just doesn't do it. Now let's hit the power button. And let's see what happens. All right, so it just turned off. Turn it back on. Now that's typically normal. It's just relearning everything that it needs to learn. Come on. Please work. We got to post. Awesomeness. So now let's go ahead and install Windows 10. I am going to go with Windows 10, get drivers, get games, and let's see how well this thing performs. So about an hour later, Windows 10 installed, and the cool thing is, this had a key, so we're activated. We're legit. None of the SCD key action. So anyways, moving on. BIOS updated. There was one actually from January. The computer ran fine, but I like to put the newer stuff in there. Also, if you ever run into Device Manager and you have a couple of tons of those drivers that are just not installed properly, chipset driver fixes most of that. But either way, the computer runs fine. So Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 1080p, low settings, and we got anywhere from 40 to 70 frames per second, just depending on the scene. Works and looks great. Now I get asked the question all the time, why am I using older games like this to benchmark? Well, because the price range of what this computer would sell for, These are the games that people are gonna be able to play, and I do get asked a lot about that. So I'll use Shadow the Tomb Raider, maybe a newer game, and of course Fortnite. But as you can see, we dropped down to 40. So I might say we might average 40 frames per second, but considering that this was $10, used a bunch of junk parts that I had around the garage, not too shabby. So let's see what the average is. And we're at 40 frames per second, lows to the 33. Smooth, decent, looks pretty good. So let's move on to the next one. And on to the Fortnite. And I still use this game because you got to cater to the area you live in if you're going to flip, older computers, because that's the questions that they're going to ask. Everybody asks us about this game, and I know a buddy of mine who lives in a different state, they get asked about Apex Legends. Just for some reason, my area is Fortnite. I wish my area was Apex Legends. I remember listening to another YouTuber or tech guy, and one thing he mentioned was that when he was starting his computer business, everybody was getting into Apex Legend, and they wanted to get a PC capable of playing it pretty cheap, and he was able to build them, and that's how he pretty much got his stuff started. So something to keep in mind. 1080p low settings, 100 frames per second, and I'm getting my butt slaughtered over here. But I think the lowest I saw it dip to was about 70, so you were still over the 60 frames per second. And this game is, once you tweak it a little bit, you can definitely get more performance out of it. So considering that we got an R9 270 with 2 gigs of VRAM, respectable, it works. And if I could get off my feet crawling, well, I could probably enjoy this game. So let's wrap this up. Now, I know I said I was going to wrap this up, but I figured I'd go ahead and try this. So now this is the Spider-Man Miles Morales, and 1080p, very low settings, and it plays pretty decent. Now I'm getting my butt kicked because normally I play with my Xbox controller, but it's still working pretty good. We're in a fight scene, 1080p, very low settings, and the game is performing very well. Averaging roughly 30 frames per second, and I'm sure if I knew the right button combination, I would have gotten destroyed like I did. So considering as old as this graphics card is and this computer is, we're playing a newer game, and it works really well, and I'm sure there's a lot of other games that we could also take advantage of. So, final thoughts now. For $10, this was a good deal. Yes, it is a gamble because they could have put this thing in the garage and just said, you know what, it doesn't work, it's garbage. And I've seen that happen when power supplies go bad or these things just get damaged for other reasons, and they just put it in the garage, they put it on the yard sale, so for $10, and primarily because it was damaged. In this case, I believe that it was just put away because it was old and it wasn't meeting the needs that whatever they were using it for, workstation, server, I don't know what they used it for. I didn't ask a lot of questions on it, but for $10, it's a great deal, and even a better deal for me considering that a lot of these parts are parts that I've had lying around the garage. Throw them in here, get better bang for the buck, and I could probably flip this and move this stuff out of here a lot quicker. Now, I do believe that the CPU that came with it would have been an issue, a bottleneck. I mean, 2.2 gigahertz base frequency. Yes, it had a little more cores on it, but 1630 was the way to go. Glad I had that CPU lying around. Folks, if you have old stuff, keep it. It will definitely come in clutch when you need it. Now, the R9 270, although it holds up okay, something like a 1070, a 1080, maybe even a 2060 would work really good and give us 1080p, better performance on it. But I'm on a budget, and I want to keep this thing low and flip this thing low, and that's the way to go. Now, as far as the DVD drive, I'm just going to leave this like this. I'll disclose it to whoever buys it, because, I mean, ID, it's not going to work, but it's going to seal up that hole, and it'll work good. So I'll put this up for sale, see what people want to pay for it, maybe $100, $120. Also, one thing I do is that I offer trades, and I've gotten some really cool trades on computers like this, older stuff, junk stuff. I don't know, we'll see what happens, and if I get something cool, we'll definitely do a video. So comment down below, let me know your thoughts, concerns, criticisms. Would you have bought this? Would you even mess with this? I get a lot of people that say that even if somebody threw this in their lap, they wouldn't mess with anything like this. I think there's a potential for money. You know, junk for one person is treasure for another. If you like this video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, and as always, see what we come up with next.